Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous friends. How are you guys? It's been a long time. I'm a little nervous. Don't mind the mess because the best lighting is in my children's room in their window. So just forget about that. I filmed this video beforehand, but it's just boring when I don't do my makeup, and you guys like when I do my makeup. So I'm going to retell this story, re-edit this entire story, and then I'm going to upload it because time since I have just simply done my makeup this glam. The most I put on is concealer nowadays. So let's jump right into this. Let's jump right into it. Also, most of my makeup is expired, so when you're looking at me and you're like, what the hell is she doing? I'm making it work with what I have, okay? I need to go shopping for makeup, and I have not gotten to in a long time, so just bear with me. So I don't know where half my makeup is. That is the other problem. Let's just jump right in to today's story, which happens to be my own story, and it's nothing to do with true crime. It's the birth of my child. So if you guys were following along, you know that my pregnancy was not a good time, but my birthing experience with this one was 10 out of 10. If you watch Deanna on TikTok, you know why I did that. I am addicted to her. So Miss Nova Lee was born on 10/28. Actually, let me reverse a little bit because I never updated anything that happened towards the end of my pregnancy because, you know, I never had luck. So the end of my pregnancy, it was beginning of October, and I was due November 11th, I believe. I think that was my original due date. Anyways, beginning of October, Denver comes home from daycare, and I guess a week before that, the daycare lady had said, all right, a couple kids have COVID. Just watch out if she has any symptoms. Obviously, you can't bring her to daycare. Go get her tested, whatever. So Denver didn't have any symptoms. Like, this is end of September. 2 weeks passes by. I'm like, oh, yeah, we skipped COVID. Nope, wrong. Right at the end of September, COVID hits our house. I am the mom. And if you know and you're a mom, you usually are the one that your child wants when they're sick. Yeah. So I got COVID. I got COVID while pregnant. I went and I did the monoclonal antibodies, and that helped me a lot. I didn't have COVID too bad. It was pretty miserable. I couldn't really get out of bed, but that was just being on top of pregnant. My doctor said, thank goodness you're on blood thinners because you probably would have clotted. And yeah, so love that for me. That's just long story short of the whole COVID thing. So I get done with COVID and I have like 2 doctor's appointments left because, you know, I was going weekly at that point because I was high risk. So the week before I get induced, I go in and they do the like full body anatomy scan. And the ultrasound tech, she goes, okay, so I'm measuring this baby at 9 pounds, 5 ounces. Yes, I did almost poop my pants and pass out right there on that table. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is a giant baby. And my doctor's like, oh no, there's no way that she's right. But that ultrasound tech told me, she's like, I've never been off more than a few ounces. And I'm like, oh my God, they were really wrong with Denver. They told me that Denver was 6 pounds and like 12 ounces, and she ended up being 8'8". So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to give birth to a 12-pound baby. And she's like, no, you're fine. She did also tell me that with COVID, people have been seeing that it's been stunting the baby's growth and their development. So she's like, I'm really not that worried, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I really doubt that this baby is 9 pounds. Like, you don't look that big. Mind you, I grew this baby in my butt. My butt is still massive. My butt is still massive from this baby, and I can't fit into my pants yet, and I'm pissed because she's 3 months old. And I want to fit into my damn pants again, okay? So that appointment gets over with, and she's like, okay, we could probably schedule you next week for sure for your induction, because I was over being pregnant at this point. I'm like, I want this baby out today. I want it out of me. She's like, no, let's just wait until you're exactly 38 weeks. And I'm like, fine. So 38 weeks comes around. I had an appointment that Monday, and I got induced that Thursday. So we had to go in early because I tested positive for GBS again. And I go in, and We get all set up and everything. They start the penicillin, and she comes in a couple hours later, and she's like, okay, I want to start Pitocin, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to break your water a little bit after that. She's like, but before I come in, you need to get the epidural if you want it, because your cervix is going to melt away like cotton candy the way that it feels. And I'm like, great. So call in, and I was like 3-4 centimeters dilated at this point, and I need to be doing my makeup. And so I'm like 3 to 4 centimeters dilated at this point, and I'm like, okay. So the epidural team comes in, and they had an intern in there, which I'm totally fine with intern nurses. I had one in there too. I had a nurse that was learning. I let her do everything on me because they have to learn at some point. So I'm letting them, do everything on me. Oh my God, I do not remember the first epidural, like, hardly at all, but I do not remember it being, like, a crunchy feeling in my back. It was awful. But once the epidural, he finally got it in. It felt like a freaking hours it took him to get it in. He finally got the epidural in, and I'm just chilling, writing, ready to go. And then about, I think it was like 10:30, she came in and she broke my water. And then things progressed really quickly. And then at about 2:45-ish, I said, okay, I have a lot of pressure down there. And she's like, okay, just to let you know that we do have to have 2 doctors in here. One, because of how high risk you are. 2, because of how big this baby is, and we're kind of worried that your hips aren't going to, like, be wide enough to get this baby out. And I'm like, that's fine. You do what you need to do. So then 3 o'clock hits, and I'm like, this pressure is like no other. I'm like, this baby is, like, really down there. And they checked it, and I wasn't quite crowning yet, so I just kind of tried to wait as long as I could until I started crowning to make it easier on myself. We're sitting there cracking jokes this whole time. We're talking about my last labor, like, we're just cracking jokes the whole time. It was great birth experience. And so then finally at about like 3:05, I was like, okay, I have to push. Like, I just have this feeling to push, and I can't stop myself from pushing. And she's like, all right, then let's go. It's game time. We can make it game time. So I freaking pushed with all my might, and this baby came out so freaking fast. Denver, I literally pushed for almost 3 hours. I have a video on that if you want to go watch that birth experience. But this one, I only pushed for about like 15-20 minutes, and then she was out. It was actually really funny. So as I'm pushing, we're still cracking jokes, having a good time. And my doctor, all of a sudden, she goes, here, take this thing. And then I got to pull her out of me. And I, like, that was the most badass, best feeling ever. Like, that was probably my favorite part of the whole thing, was just being able to, like, pull my child out of me. That sounds weird, but... So Nova's out. She is on my chest, and we're doing, like, our golden hour and everything. She breastfed. She was a little bit trickier to breastfeed right away. She liked to tuck in her top lip, but we got it figured out right away. She was a rock star. The doctor's like, this baby is freaking long. And she still is a long girl. But she didn't seem as big as Denver. So I'm like, oh yeah, she's smaller. Denver came out like covered in rolls, and she was just this little chubby little thing. Nova is just like all length, and like she's got like a little belly, she's got little leg rolls, but not like Denver. Denver looked like Pillsbury Doughboy when she was first born. And so I'm like, oh, this baby's not that big. They weighed her 9 pounds even. 9 pounds even. I couldn't, like, I still can't believe that I pushed out a 9-pound kid and did it so easily and quickly. And then so the nurse had done that because I was doing golden hour, and my doctor came back in a little bit later, and she's like, all right, how much did this baby weigh? And I go, 9 pounds. She's like, huh? That thing is 9 pounds? And I'm like, yeah, that thing is 9 pounds. She's like, I'm so freaking proud of you, and gave me a high five. And seriously, this birth experience was much better. I had the same doctor as last time. It was just, that's your first baby. It's a little bit harder, but this time, like, I was just ready to get this baby out, and she's thebomb.com. So then we are just chilling, and literally before even 24 hours was up, the hospital's like, okay, yeah, you guys can go home. So we're like, okay. She's like, well, you just have to get one last little check mark from one doctor, and I guess you're good to go. And it was the pediatrician. It was because I tested GBS positive. And usually they make you stay 48 hours for that. But that doctor that day, he was feeling nice apparently, and he's like, everything is fine. All of her levels came back fine after all her blood work and everything. He's like, you guys can go home. So we go home. And this is where my birth story gets really, really funny. So as you can see, I've got a freaking rock on my hand now. And this is the funniest engagement story ever. And it goes along with my birth story, so I'm just going to throw it all in this one video. So the person who comes in and does the birth certificates comes in, because that was also something we had to do before we left. They come in and they had said something, and I go, yeah, it'd be real nice if we were married. And all of a sudden, I just see Nick start, like, sweating buckets when I said that. And I'm like, what? And he was just acting weird. And I'd like, whatever. It didn't bug me. Like, I thought he was just shocked because we were going home so fast. And I'm like, whatever. So last year, back in June, I guess my mom and Nick started this plan that Nick was going to ask me to marry him once Nova was born. And they had this whole plan to figure out. But because everything was moving so fast, Nick couldn't complete the project they had going on. So what was supposed to happen is Nick was supposed to give the nurses this onesie that my mom made. And it said, will you marry my daddy? And the nurses were supposed to come back and, like, tell me to do something to check her diaper or something, something like that. So that's what he was supposed to do. But because everything moved so fast, and every time he went out to the car and he went to go, like, get his food from somewhere, he forgot to grab the onesie. And then, so that plan failed, and he's just acting really weird as we're leaving the hospital. And I just kept thinking, I'm like, oh, it's just because he's shocked that we're leaving so early. I'm like, whatever. We're going to go home. Like, I was like, there's a new baby. Like, it's just, yeah, like a whole new thing for him, And so we are driving down the road, and Nick hands me this Ziploc bag with something in it. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, open it. And I'm like, what is it? And he likes to play funny jokes on me sometimes, so I'm thinking it's something dumb. I'm like, oh, it's something dumb, isn't it? And he's like, oh, I don't know, open it and find out. And I'm like, what is it? I'm like, can you just tell me? And he's like, no, open it. So I open it, and it says, will you marry my daddy? And it's a onesie. And I literally pointed the fans on me in my car, literally so I would not cry, because I, like, didn't want to cry for some reason. I literally pointed the fans on me, and I just kept calling him an asshole. That's all I kept doing. I'm like, you're an asshole, you're an asshole, you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And that's all I kept saying to him. And I was like, and so finally he's like, so is it a yes or is it a no? And I'm like, yes, it's a freaking yes. Yeah. And I just like, it was such a big shock. But then this is where it becomes the most Nicholas proposal ever. He goes, I forgot to order the ring in time, but it's coming. And I'm like, I literally just busted out laughing. I'm like, this could not be any more of a Nicholas proposal ever. Like, this is literally Nick. So on the way home, we decided, okay, well, let's just keep the engagement to ourselves for a little while until the ring comes, because no one's going to believe it without a ring, you know what I mean? Like, we've been together for 3 years, almost 4 years now, so no one's going to believe that we're actually engaged unless they have a ring. So I'm like, let's just enjoy it for ourselves. But my mom knew, so my mom just kept waiting for a text message. But I texted my mom, and I said, how dare you keep a secret from me? And she didn't know what I was talking about. She wasn't sure if it was for sure what I was talking about or not. So she's like, I don't know if, like, Nick did it or not, or if he chickened out. Because he had been texting my mom being like, oh my God, I forgot the onesie in the car. We're leaving. I don't know what to do. And then he was like, I don't have the ring. Like, do I still do it without the ring? And my mom's like, yeah, just go for it. So finally my mom, she brings Denver home because they had Denver while we were in the hospital. And she's like, oh, okay, he did do it. That's pretty much how that went. We had to flash forward a little bit because I was a little behind on the makeup with the talking, because I'm just very excited to tell this story apparently. But so a couple days, I think it was about a week goes by, And Nick comes home from work and he's just like taking forever to come inside. And I'm like, come on, dude. Like, I'm waiting for you to eat dinner. Let's go. And he's just taking his sweet time outside. And then he comes in and he gets down on one knee. And then he asked me again to marry him. And I again called him an asshole. I actually had no bra on. I had pajama pants on, and he's recording it on his phone, and I'm like, you asshole, and I hit him with a towel, and because he just caught me by surprise, this, like, even more surprise this time, and it just all felt so surreal. I said yes, but yeah. So Nova's birth story was shorter than Denver's, but just as interesting. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this story. It's nice, short, and sweet. I got to sit down and do my makeup and talk to you guys, so that's pretty freaking cool. But yeah, I'm hoping to take some more mom time and film some more videos. I'm not gonna promise anything because every time I say I'm gonna upload every single week, something drastic happens in my life and I can't do that. So I'm just gonna say that I will be trying my hardest to upload more videos. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this little makeup story time. It feels good to get back into makeup. I'm definitely out of practice and need to get more into practice with it. So yeah, I will leave it at this, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and always supporting me and my crazy dreams. And yeah, so bye, guys.